Welcome to a new episode of the Sunday Sauce. I am here with the president of the New York Young Republican Club, a club that I'm a member of, Gavin Wax, or as we call him in the Italian caucus, Gavin Waxacini.
Waxacini, wow. That's
welcome,
good.
Welcome, Gavin.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's good to be here. I love the name. I love the whole podcast aesthetic. It's good. Everyone loves a good Sunday sauce.
You like that?
Yeah. There's two types of ragouts. Everyone mixes this up.
Yes. Well, enlighten me. What did you
So
hear?
there's a ragout napolitana and there's a ragout bolognese.
You're quite the chef, aren't you?
I make a mean carbonara. I make some good pesto. But no, there's the Sunday sauce in the U.S. It's the Neapolitan version of bolognese, and it's a lot more meat heavy. And then the bolognese from Bologna that most people think of, it's more cream heavy. It has the sofrito. It's a little bit different. So they're two different styles because most of the Italian immigrants in the U.S. come from the south of Italy. So there you go. You get the Sunday sauce. It's really a ragu alla Napolitana.
So a lot of people would think that the last name Wax, this guy's not Italian, but you actually are Italian. You let me know that you were.
Yeah, no, people don't believe it. So all my grandparents were born in Italy, but I had one grandfather. He was Jewish, so I got that last name Wax. But my middle name's Mario, and everyone else is Italian. But then my first name Irish, so it throws everyone off. I'm not Irish at all.
You look a little Irish, though.
I look it, though. I look it. It's weird. It's funny.
I think it's the beard.
It's the beard. I don't tan well. It is what it is. My grandma had red hair, so she was Italian, but she was one of the few Italians that had red hair. So I think I got her complexion probably down the line.
I wonder, I don't know. It's so crazy how we all came through Ellis Island and they're just like, Wax.
Yeah, it probably was a longer name. I don't know what they did. It's also my mom's name. It's not my dad's name. If I took my dad's name, my last name would be Vendini, Mario Vendini.
That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's like a magician.
Yeah, I have two birth certificates because they weren't married, so I could use the Italian name or the Jewish name.
So you would actually be eligible for Italian citizenship.
I would. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. Can I curse on here?
Of course you can curse on here, bro. You can say whatever you want.
I don't know what the rules were on
the
Sunday
here.
sauce.
There's no fucking rules.
It's a pain in the ass to get, but if you have one grandparent who was born in Italy, you can secure Italian citizenship. You just have to go to the consulate and show your paperwork. But they make it a pain.
We're actually working on that.
You are?
We got people on the inside.
Oh yes, I read about that.
Has people on the inside.
I read about that. That looked good. Yeah, at the consulate. But it's good. You get an EU passport. You can travel freely. You can work there. So it's a good deal if you can work it.
Well, I mean, Italy's kind of like a third world country right now. I mean,
it's
the non-tourism spots, of course.
I think a lot of people, they go to Italy and they think grass is it's like the vacation spots, but Italy has a lot of problems. I mean, I have a lot of cousins there. They're all trying to come to the U.S., try to go to the U.K. They got high unemployment. People can't get jobs. I got people, family members of mine. They have master's degrees, PhDs. Right. They keep getting more degrees. And they can't get jobs in Italy. It's a tough economy, and a lot of Americans go there, for their study abroad and whatever. But then it's not what they expect if you actually live there.
I mean, you could buy houses for $1 there.
Exactly. But then there's no job.
You have to invest in them, too.
Yeah, you have to put money into it. But then there's no jobs. You're not going to get like a standard corporate job you would get in the U.S. and Italy.
No, of course not.
It's
you would have to be like a fucking dairy farmer.
Something like that.
Literally, I don't even know what you would be there.
Exactly. No,
in Sicily, you would definitely have to be a farmer because there's
nothing.
Palermo.
Exactly. There's no real jobs like that. And a lot of the people, you go to Italy, they're like people in their 30s, 40s. They still live at home because it's like you can't even buy a house there. You can't buy property. It's kind of a mess. So.
Yeah. So where does Gavin Wax get into this whole? Walk me through. How old are you? Because
28.
You're 28. I'm 33. We're not that much, apart.
Close.
So did you grow up in New York your whole life?
I'm originally from Bayside in Queens.
All right. So
I'm from the area.
Brooklyn boy.
Yeah.
Queen boy.
Yep.
Right.
Pure Bay Ridge.
So were you always into the politics?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it hasn't been my full-time job at all times, but I've been getting more involved over the last few years, and the party in New York is kind of a joke, but
I mean, it's a joke, but at the same time, it's sad how it's a joke.
Yeah. No,
this city's in dire straits.
Yeah, look, it didn't used to be like this, and you used to have competitive elections. You used to have a two-party system. Right now, it's one-party rule. So you see when there's no competition between the parties, things kind of get out of hand. We have a massive number of people leaving the state. We got rising crime. It's an affordability crisis. So there's a lot of problems plaguing the city, the state. I mean, upstate. whole other set of problems. You know, we think about the city a lot, but upstate isn't doing great either. So
No.
a lot of issues, but not a lot of leadership.
Yeah. Speaking of upstate, I have a summer house in Sullivan County, and there's a lot of
it's beautiful up there.
But a lot of meth problems up there.
Oh yeah, the opioid crisis.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
forget about this. You go to these small towns, and you know, there's no jobs, there's no real future, and drugs, opioids everywhere. People are ODing all the time, and it's a big problem, and no one talks about it. And you know, a lot of these prescriptions. A lot of these drugs were originally prescribed, and they were overprescribed, and there's a whole racket that goes on, especially in the Midwest and a lot of these Rust Belt towns. Like upstate New York is basically the Midwest.
Pretty much.
It's like Rust Belt.
Yeah.
So a lot of these towns, you know, they overprescribed it, and you know, no one holds some of the doctors to account. No one holds big pharma to account. I mean, that's a crime if you overprescribe, you know, these medications. You know, you're akin to a drug dealer at that point. So.
Who was the president of the club before you?
We've had a lot over the years. It's an old club, goes back over 100 years.
We're celebrating our birthday.
There you go, 111.
Birthday. Well,
Yeah.
this episode airs Sunday, but
It'll be after.
It'll be after, yes.
Close
yes,
enough.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've had former mayors. We had Mayor John Lindsay. He was mayor of New York in the 60s. Wasn't really a good mayor, but he was a president of the club in the 50s. We had this guy, Dewey, who was governor of New York.
I remember Dewey.
He ran against FDR. He was the chairman of the board. So a lot of like these old-timey, you know, names have come through the ranks, and it's a storied institution. It's been around for a while. You can go, the predecessor orgs go back to the time of Lincoln, and they invited Abraham Lincoln to come speak at Cooper Union, which got him nominated to the presidency. And then, you know, obviously that triggered the Civil War and all that. So it's been around a long, long time.
Right. So we've had some pretty big names in our club.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you see, like, in the last, since Trump was president, right? Do you see our club growing very fast?
I think yeah, I do. I think a lot of people have started to get involved, have started to, you know, come out, you know, be more politically active. I think just things have changed a lot over the last 8-10 years, you know, so there's a lot of different types of people that are, you know, being Republican now that they were 10 years ago. You know, you had more of a Bush Cheney country club kind of Republican that existed, and now it's a little more working class. It's a little more outer borough. It's a little different. It's a different vibe. And I think in a place like New York, that's kind of helped, honestly. You know, we've lost some people that may have been members in the past that were more, you know, waspy, a little more, you know, upper middle class, but now it's a different vibe.
A lot of hedge fundy, hoity-toity bros.
Yeah, that party's dead. I mean, people think like Wall Street is like big Republican money. It's not. Like you go to the big banks, you go to the hedge funds, the finance bros. I mean, all of the institutional finance, it's pretty much Democrat. I mean, and that makes sense. I mean,
But why?
I think a lot of people follow who's in power. So I think there's a huge segment of the population that's going to be transactional, and they're going to support whatever party's in power. So if you work for big finance, if you work for big pharma, if you work for any of these big corporations, you're going to support the party that's in power. And in a place like New York City, New York State, whatever it is, that's the Democrats. So people are going to follow institutional power. And institutional power is in one party, and that party is going to reap the benefits. That's just going to be a segment of some of these groups. It's not ideological. It's transactional.
But don't you think when these millionaires and billionaires see their paycheck, like right now,
Right.
Biden's just totally fucking killing us, right? With taxes and gas inflation.
Well, they're killing the little guy. They're not killing the big guy.
I mean, I guess they don't really see it, right? They don't really.
Well, you have to. I mean, look, I have a lot of friends that, you know, are Democrats, more on the left of things, and some things I agree with. I think, you know, some of these hedge fund guys, these big finance people, you know, they don't pay the share that they claim to pay, or what a lot of people accuse them of paying. A lot of those taxes you're talking about, they get hit on middle class individuals. They get hit on small businesses. They get hit on, you know, working class people. It's people that can't hire fancy accountants, fancy lawyers to find the loopholes, because you have the statutory rate, and you could say the statutory rate is X percent, but no one's paying X percent because they're hiring a guy to get you down to Y percent, so you get to save all the money. But if you don't have the money to hire that guy, you're never going to get your rates lower. So that really messes up the people in the middle, the people on the lower end of the tax brackets.
Well, that's why Joe Manchin said he's not going to vote on this Build Back Better bill, because how can he go back to West Virginia and show his people that he voted for a piece of shit bill like this?
Oh, he would get eviscerated. I mean, you look at a place like West Virginia. It's funny. It's like that is one of the most Republican states in the country. It's
Right.
like overwhelming, and he's a Democrat, so he has to walk a very fine line. But he's kind of a relic. He's an old blue dog.
He's like a real Democrat.
Yeah. He's like a Democrat that like existed like 50 years ago.
He kind of like has Clinton vibes, sort
He
of.
is.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
Bill Clinton was a Southern Democrat.
He's a moderate.
He was a moderate.
Right.
Bill Clinton built a different type of party. Bill Clinton was like the new Democrats, and they were more moderate. You know, they were willing to work across the aisle. Bill Clinton came from the South. He came from Arkansas. So he's kind of in that mold. He's 100% in that mold. And honestly, when Manchin first ran, Bill Clinton was like his biggest supporter. But that party's dead. There's been a massive regional change, and you know the parties have kind of changed their geography from south to north. Even 60, 70 years ago, the Republican Party in New York was like it killed. It was the main party to be in. It was the party of the Rockefellers. It was the party of Jacob Javits, John Lindsay, Dewey, all these big names. They ran the country. So things have changed a lot since then.
Why is now these Democrats I hear all over the news voter ID? Right?
Yeah.
Jim Crow.
Yeah.
Did Democrats forget that they're the ones who passed Jim Crow? Are they
Yeah,
forgetting
look,
things?
I think there's a lot of things that people like to forget through history,
Right.
and if it's not convenient, doesn't
But
work.
how can they even compare voter ID to Jim Crow?
It is kind of insulting because to the victims of Jim Crow,
Correct.
to claim that someone who got lynched, someone who was totally stripped of their basic human rights,
Right.
is akin to showing just a basic form of ID. I mean, you show a basic form of ID to do anything.
Correct.
And you look at other countries. A lot of people like to compare the U.S. to what happens in Europe or Australia or all these places. All those countries have this. Like
Right.
it's a very standard thing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you need to do in life to show a basic form of identification. And it's not like it's hard to get. So I think it's
We give voter ID. We give a regular ID to illegal immigrants in New York City.
Right, you do.
So it's not hard to get.
you can get an ID for anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be a driver's license.
No, just a regular ID.
Yeah, just anything
for free.
For free.
The government pays.
Right.
The New York state government pays.
No one's ever shown any data that shows that there's this massive subset of the population that doesn't have a form of government issued
Right.
ID. You could have people that have been living off the grid, that are living in a shack in the woods and have no electricity, and they'll still have a government issued ID.
The Unabomber.
Yeah, they all have IDs. You talk to people that are homeless; they'll have IDs. So it's this whole idea that it's somehow racist or it's somehow an intrusion on voting rights is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, you want to talk about Jim Crow? How about Mayor de Blasio when he instilled the vaccine mandate?
Right.
40% of African Americans didn't want to get the vaccine mandate,
Right.
and they were shuttered from using any New York City businesses or facilities. So let's talk about Jim Crow. I mean, like, what do you
Look, it's an inconvenient fact. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it because you implement these mandates, and you look at the data, and the data doesn't lie. The data shows very clearly, there is a massive vaccine hesitancy in the black community.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're instilling these policies, who are you hurting? You're hurting black New Yorkers. You're
Right.
hurting Hispanics. You're hurting outer borough, working class people, and of all races. And it's pretty discriminatory. And you see a place like Washington, D.C., they revoked their mandate.
Yes.
They got rid of it. And it was one of the reasons why is because D.C. has a very high black population.
Right.
And it was completely discriminatory. You can't go in. You can't eat at a counter. You can't
Correct.
eat. You can't get a beer. You can't get a burger. So, this thing is going to have massive blowback.
I don't think people understand like how Washington D.C. is. Like they think just like the Capitol buildings and the White House.
Oh, no.
But, like the outer D.C. is like a shithole.
Oh, yeah.
It's hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a nice place.
Yeah, look, what's happening in America's cities are horrible. I mean,
it's-
people just forget about huge swaths of the urban America. And
Like Baltimore, D.C., that whole area.
they've all been devastated, and no one cares.
Yeah,
no one cares about them. I mean, it's funny actually. There was a Democrat mayor, the former Democrat mayor of Boston. She just got She just got replaced. She came out and attacked De Blasio. She was a black woman.
Yes,
She came out and attacked De Blasio over this policy, and she was just like, I'm not implementing this.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard her. Yeah,
So-
it's ridiculous because you're hurting black Americans.
Right. There's division within the party. Then you see
But and then the new mayor, then she puts the
the new mayor came in and put it in. So and then
who's Asian, which
right?
is
They
weird.
put it in, and there's a whole change there. And then you see Eric Adams came out and was defending Cantor, saying he should play. And it's just like, all right, yeah, he should play, but what about everyone? Why don't you extend that policy across the board?
Yes. He today actually I saw Mayor Adams. He said it was the vaccine mandates were unfair about Kyrie Irving, but oh well. So I don't know really what he was going with that. Like he should be able to play home games on the Brooklyn Nets.
I think he's trying to play both sides. He's trying to get points for being like, yeah, he should be able to play home games, but he's also trying to, say I'm still going to support these policies.
Mayor Adams also said that the white journalists are hard on him. I don't know where that came from, but
I don't know either. He won with a white coalition.
Right,
he won with a white vote.
All white liberals voted for him.
Yeah, no,
so I'm very confused where he's getting his.
I think we're going to see like a big thing playing out over the next few years where any kind of criticism of him, he's going to claim it's racist. But, we'll see. We'll see how it ends up. I don't think he's going to be able to hold these policies for too much longer. He has national aspirations. He's talked about running for president.
Right.
He's not going to be able to run for president if he's going to be seen as carrying de Blasio's baggage.
That's literally what he's doing.
So he needs to
he's just literally continuing de Blasio's policies.
But he needs to be his own man. He needs to come out and be like, I'm changing X, Y, and Z. And maybe he will. We'll see. I think things are changing and things are going to change over the next few months. So if he does, maybe he'll be in a better position. But right now, nothing seems to really be changing.
Well, he was going in the right direction even before he got sworn in. BLM, you're not doing what you did in summer 2020.
Oh, yeah.
We're not doing that.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. Holy shit.
Well, he won because he first off, he won the Democrat primary because he ran pro-law and order.
Right.
Because there is a massive crime issue, whether people don't want to realize it or not. Every week we're hearing about something.
Oh, no, that's nothing. That's not nothing. Jen Psaki says that's nothing. Yeah,
if you can go to brunch in the West Village.
It's transitory.
Right. I had brunch in the West Village. There's no crime. But seriously, if you look at the crime rates, it's crazy. If you look at just look at news headlines, you see someone getting pushed on the tracks, someone getting stabbed to death in Chinatown.
The poor woman.
Exactly. And this has happened every other week. Bail reform. So if he doesn't deliver on crime, if he doesn't actually lower crime rates to a measurable degree, he's toast. He'll get challenged by the left in the Democrat primary, and he'll face a tougher opponent in the general. So he's kind of in an uphill battle. He needs to show
but
results.
Most of the left are anti-law and order.
Well, I kind of feel bad for him in this sense. He came out with a proposal to the New York State Senate. He said, I need you guys, and this is Eric Adams, a Democrat, telling the Democrat-controlled state Senate, and the Assembly, we need to change bail reform. And they basically told him no.
No, of course.
And it's kind of tough because, he could do everything right. He could tell the cops, make the arrest, go through all the motions. But if the same guy is out on...
comes down to the DA, really.
Yeah, it comes down to the DA. And if these guys come out with desk appearance tickets, they'll be out on the street in 24 hours.
How many people have to die?
Yeah.
That guy who stabbed that poor Asian woman.
Oh, he had a rap sheet going back years.
Years.
He shouldn't be out on the street. And people act like oh, we need to be, we need to treat them better. We need to show, some kind of sympathy. It's like, look, show sympathy for the victims. Correct. I think everyone forgets the victims of crime get nothing, and everyone talks about
because they're dead and they're
right.
You
exactly.
just forget about them. That's all. Yeah.
And then everyone, you have a party, and the Dems have always been talking about strip police officers of qualified immunity.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, I have a counter proposal. Why don't you strip judges and district attorneys of qualified immunity? So if you're a judge and you let off a criminal, and then he goes back on the street and commits another murder, you can be held civilly liable in civil court.
I fucking love that.
If you're a district attorney and you have a guy in front of you, with weapons charges, assault charges, and then you let him out, and then he goes and kills his girlfriend, that district attorney who let him off should now be
disbarred.
Disbarred, yes, but also the victims can now sue.
Yeah,
and I think honestly that's a good system because that's the only thing that's going to hold these DAs and judges to account. Because some of the judges are appointed, so they don't care.
Right.
They have they'll always have their pension. They'll collect their income, and then you have some of these district attorneys. No one pays attention to district attorney races. You have to be a total political nerd, so they'll get elected every time. You make sure that they could have civil liability. Forget it. They'll be acting very, very different.
Well, I'll tell you. So I was FDNY EMT for 5 years or so in Manhattan, actually in this area, where we'll pick up a crazy person, right? We'll bring them. We call them EDPs, mostly served person. We pick them up. We take them to Bellevue or Beth Israel because those are the two. Because I worked in Lower Manhattan, so those are the two psychiatric wards. We bring them. They're out in 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's it. Shoot 'em right back on the street.
We have a mental health crisis, and there was this move in like the 60s and 70s to close down all the mental institutions. Because obviously, we all know about, the history of the mental institution, One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
You even see things like an American Horror Story, Asylum. So like everyone knows like the stereotype of like the 1950s institution. They were horribly run. But the solution to that wasn't to throw everything out. The solution was to reform those institutions and make them better, because there is a segment of people that suffer from mental health problems and they need treatment. They need treatment that they're not going to get on the street. They're not going to get treatment for their mental health issues living in a park or living under a bridge. In fact, it's going to exacerbate the problem. And if they're suffering for schizophrenia, they're a danger to themselves and others. And they shouldn't just be allowed to walk on the streets. They should be treated in a public health facility. But instead, we just push them into the homeless population, and it's completely inhumane. It's completely detrimental to their health and the health of other people. So, it had maybe the cause of shutting down the mental institutions had a good, it sounded good, but the solution wasn't right, and we actually have had a lot more issues since.
Yeah, we have a serious mental health problem.
And then it's exacerbated by, tons of drugs on the streets. I mean, you take a person with an underlying mental health condition, you add drugs.
They have shoot-up centers here.
Yeah. Oh, it's
that
crazy.
was de Blasio's parting gift.
Right, shoot-up centers, which is the whole thing is so cynical. No, it's so cynical, and it's like how are you going to deal with someone suffering from overdoses? Oh, just let them continue to use the drug, just a little safer.
Supervise, no problem.
Supervise the injection. So they're
and we have Narcan every time they overdose.
That's not going to solve the problem. That's incentivizing.
Of course.
You're incentivizing bad behavior, incentivizing people to slowly kill themselves. It's not humane. It's not humane at all.
Yeah. I mean, so now we're seeing all these lockdowns come, the mandates. They're all of a sudden
ending.
Yeah. Why? You know why. I know you know why.
Look,
tell me. I want,
Look, a week ago, all of a sudden you saw New Jersey, you just saw LA County, you just saw a bunch of Democrat-controlled states and municipalities all of a sudden systemically dropping mask mandates, dropping any kind of lockdown order, even vaccine mandates in the case of D.C. The Democrats saw some internal polling that showed that these mandates are just not popular and they're going to kill them in the midterms. So what do? They made a political decision and they decided to take them back, which I'm fine with that, but at the end of the day, you have to look at their motive. Was their motive public health? No, their motive was politics. And it also shows that initially the mandates were not about public health either. They were about politics. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to make political decisions. They're going to wipe their hands clean and pretend it never happened. So, we'll see what happens come November, but they're looking at a historic red wave. I mean, the Republicans are set to pick up maybe 70 seats in the House, retake the Senate.
There's a bunch of retiring Democrats as well, because they know that they just have no shot.
They have no shot, so they're retiring. They don't want to go out with as a loss.
Yeah.
So this is going to be historic. I mean, this is going to be one of the largest wave years in terms of seat changes, both in the Senate and in the House and at the local level. So I think they're worried, and they're trying now to scale back a lot of the stuff they've done over the last year and trying to ease up on things, which also is happening in other countries. You look at the UK, they've dropped everything. Ireland, everything. All the Scandinavian countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, they either never had any mandates or they dropped whatever's left. I just saw Austria is dropping them. So a lot of these countries are slowly opening up.
I'm laughing at the UK one because the prime minister was caught in the party.
Right.
And he's like, all right, fuck it, whatever. That was it.
Fucking
Which
Boris
is cool,
Johnson.
though, because he got caught. And
he got caught.
And he said, you know what? You're right. I fucked up.
I can respect that.
That's
kind
respect.
of. I can respect that.
Mayor Garcetti of LA held his breath for a picture at this Pro Bowl or wherever he was. The championship game.
Super Bowl.
And then he must have held that was 2 weeks ago at the championship game.
Okay, got it.
He held his breath for a picture. And then at the Super Bowl, he must have held his breath for the whole fucking time because he didn't wear a mask at all. So he just had it dangling on his wrist. But Boris Johnson, respect to him.
Yeah, look,
you guys caught me.
He got caught in like several parties that he wasn't masked or anything. So he said, you know what? Fuck it. We'll drop it. So whatever. Was that great? No, I kind of respect it. But then you get these guys, they double down or they make up excuses. And you see all these politicians who keep posing with children. And the children are masked.
And they're not.
They're masked up to their eyeballs. And then the politicians are standing there, without masks. So it's so sick, especially when you talk about children who have the lowest risk of COVID. They have the lowest risk of any kind of serious illness, and you're you're putting them in a situation where you're stunting their development.
Yes.
You're stunting their ability to learn how to socialize. You're growing up. I mean, child development. I mean, imagine growing up and not being able to see faces, not being able to learn body language or recognize facial, facial cues. I mean, that's part of growing up, part of socializing, and you take that out of the equation.
Right.
You're turning kids into, you're making them antisocial. I mean, you see it in some of the data that's been coming out that reading and writing scores, math scores have all collapsed during COVID, and a lot of that has to do with isolation. They've just really put a lot of psychological stress on children, and it's really sick for no provable health benefit. Like, because children have the lowest risk. Any quantitative measure, any indicator, they're the lowest risk of COVID, and they're putting some of the harshest measures on them, and it's really messed up.
Also, I think about all the women that are living with like abusers and children that are living with abusers that were locked up for a year, whatever it was.
Yeah,
like how sick, right?
Well, the kids, some of these kids, they depended on the school lunches,
right?
They depended on going to school to get out of abusive homes,
right?
And now they're locked into those homes in an even worse situation. Ugh. So it
makes me ill. Like, really, it makes me ill.
In 20 years from now, 20, 30 years, people are going to be writing massive books and essays on all of the consequences of some of our COVID policy. Because what happened with COVID is that we forgot that any other disease exists. We forgot that people suffer from other things beyond COVID. And we put our entire focus on COVID, and we ignored the multitude of other health, psychological issues that are prevalent. And it's exacerbated mental health issues. Suicides are up. Drug overdoses are up. Depression is up. Obesity is up. I mean, every measure of things going bad have skyrocketed since COVID. So it's kind of ironic to hear people talk about public health, but they only mean it in one very narrow sense. They're not talking about everything else that's gone wrong.
You know what else is the most sickening thing about COVID? Obesity was like the number one killer if you had COVID.
But they shut the gyms.
Isn't that like...
there is no...
And they just told you, just go outside.
There is... But then even then, some people, they didn't even want you to do that.
Some states, you couldn't even go outside.
No, in Europe, you were only allowed to... And even parts of Australia during some of these lockdowns, you could leave your house to go to grocery shopping, but then you can't deviate from that path.
In California, they arrested a guy paddleboarding in the ocean by himself.
Oh, yeah.
In early 2020.
These things were not about health. These were about they were about a few things: control, and looking like you're doing something. Because at the end of the day, these politicians realized you have a very viral, infectious disease that's airborne. There's very little that you're going to be able to do to stop it once it hits community spread. So everything they do after that is just theater. Right. It's just making it look like they're doing something. Going into a restaurant, wearing your mask standing, and then sitting down, you take it off.
So stupid.
There's no science behind that. Or you see those plastic dividers.
Yeah, the plexiglass.
They act like airflow is linear. If you cough or sneeze, the particles are spreading everywhere. Yeah. They're everywhere. They're not just going this way. They're not going to just hit a plastic barrier and stop. No, they're going to go above. They're going to go below. So all of this was theater. And you talk about things like closing the gyms. I mean, some of these policies were just kind of a nuisance, but some of them were actively destructive. Like shutting down the gyms, actively destructive.
Listen, I understand if you want to shut down like the steam room and the sauna in the gym.
Right.
That's the showers.
Right.
All right, maybe because like people walk barefoot in there.
Right.
That's fine. But like the weights and the stair and the cardio machines. Like
if these places are taking basic safety precautions and are doing basic cleaning, you're fine. Yeah. I just feel like they've built up a sort of mass neuroticism and paranoia. And people are just forgetting like basic logic. The masks, for example,
they don't work.
The very beginning, I mean, it was very clear that these masks that the majority of people use, they're only the cloth ones. Right. They're only applicable in very specific medical settings, and mostly just to prevent blood splattering on your face. It's not to prevent an airborne infection.
I'll give you an example. So when in the ambulance, when we if a person's giving birth, we'll put a cloth mask on.
Right.
There's no like airborne. There's blood. There's
bodily fluids. Yes.
If someone has tuberculosis or Ebola, then we're putting an N95,
which is fitted.
Fitted, correct. Fitted. We do a fit test.
Right. And they have to be fitted, every few months?
Every year. We do a fit test. It's fitted, that we know it's our fit.
Right.
And then we put a gown.
Right.
and a face shield.
Because people forget
Yeah.
eyes,
Yes.
orifices. You
Yes.
could get
Yes.
if you're wearing a mask and I cough in your face,
Right.
it's going into your eye.
Correct.
So you're going to get sick.
You're
so
gonna get COVID regardless.
you're going to get COVID regardless of what mask you're wearing. So you look at the again. I keep saying the data. You look at the maps. You look at the charts, and it's like you take these states and localities that had mask mandates.
Mm-hmm.
There is no correlation between mask mandates and infection.
Well, they already said the lockdowns only maybe saved 0.2% of
Negligible.
Negligible. It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous, and then you're not factoring in the other costs. But
Right.
the mask mandates had no discernible impact on spread at all.
And we're still wearing masks in New York City when Governor Hochul, or whatever her fucking name is, the unelected governor,
Right.
just said no more masks.
Right.
I was just telling you, I talked to Jackie Toberoff the other day, yesterday. I went to this place, Bread's Bakery, on the Upper East Side.
Yep.
You know, it's on East 73rd.
Yeah, it's close to me.
Yeah, it's probably by you. I walk in there, I'm just looking around, and the guy's like, excuse me, sir, do you mind putting a mask on? I said, do you mind knowing the mandate's gone? Right? And then he was like, whatever. I was like, okay. So I bought a bunch of stuff, and then, I had a couple bags. He goes, do you want a shopping bag? And I was like, do you mind if I have a shopping bag?
Right.
He took all my bread and he fucking smashed it because he was mad that I didn't have a mask on.
Wow.
I got home, my black and white cookie was smashed. The frosting was all over the place.
I love a black and white. Very New York.
Dude, my sourdough bread that I bought my friend was like smashed. He was so mad he smashed my bread just because I didn't wear a mask.
A lot of this
is a true story.
A lot of this comes down to people want to feel like they're in charge and control of other people. So you put the mask in, and it gives a lot of people a sense of power that they can tell someone else, do what I want you to do. Mm-hmm. It's not about health. It's not about anything. It's conformity. It's groupthink. Mm-hmm. It's bullying in a sense. It's the same kind of peer pressure that you see in like a high school or a middle school.
Right.
It gives people a sense of power over you, and they don't want to let go of that. They don't want to let go of it. But what's the off ramp to this? Like, are we going to be wearing masks indefinitely?
No.
I mean, it's like, at what point is it okay to stop wearing masks?
I don't know. In high school, I was the anti-bullier. Like, if I saw someone bullying someone, I would beat the shit out of them, literally.
Right.
So, if you're gonna bully me into wearing a mask, that's just gonna make me very angry.
Right. I mean,
it's like you know what I mean? It's like, come on, dude.
But it just seems like it's never ending, and they're just gonna keep keeping this up, and it's like it's become like a lifestyle for some people. Like, dude, they've become so connected to masks, to testing, to all these things, and it's like, what's your off ramp?
What did we do before COVID? Like people packed in on a subway when there was flu season, and like, what did we do?
Well, you mentioned,
what did we do during the AIDS pandemic?
You mentioned flu, and you mentioned even the common cold.
Right.
COVID is a coronavirus. We've been dealing with coronaviruses forever. I mean, this is part of human nature. The common cold is a coronavirus.
Right.
And these are types of things that happen. They're seasonal.
It's a mutation.
It's a mutation every year. Exactly. It's a mutation of the common cold. And does that mean that it's not going to kill people? Of course it's going to kill people. The flu kills people. The flu kills hundreds of thousands of people every year just in this country alone. So you look at these diseases and it's like they've always existed. We've always managed them. We have a seasonal flu shot. You're welcome to take it. We should be treating COVID like the flu, like we did in 2019, because on paper, the infection rate, the mortality rate, all the symptoms are very akin to a flu. Obviously, there's a few unique symptoms to COVID, like, the loss of taste and smell, things like that. But as far as how it's treated and how it is dealt with from a public health perspective, it's really akin to the common flu. To the flu and the common cold in many senses. So treated like that. If you're going to have a yearly shot like you do the flu, okay, that's fine. I know people that took the flu shot every year. I know people who didn't. I know people who took it and then get the flu because, and then the thing about the flu shot is that sometimes it's not even for the right strain because they're always like catching up. It's for the previous year. So, and it gives you some protection from the year's flu, but it's not universal. So you go back to treating it like that. We can go back to normal and we can focus on, all the other diseases we're facing. Like we just mentioned, like the rise in obesity, the rise in depression, the rise in drug overdoses, mental health crisis, cancer, whatever it is. Like so much effort is being put into this, and you want to know why. I mean, the answer is simple. You have these pharmaceutical companies, big pharma, are making a killing. Moderna was a bankrupt company. It was not making any money.
I never even heard of them.
It was not making any money before COVID. COVID gave Moderna a lifeline, and they are now making a killing. Pfizer is now a COVID company.
Right.
Like all of their money is derived from COVID. So there is a financial incentive to ensure that that this continues to remain a crisis, quote unquote, and to continue to push, different booster shots, annual shots, 6-month shots, because they just make money off of it.
They have the government by the balls.
Right. And it's like you
it's
can't.
like we have the vaccine
Right.
that's FDA approved, Pfizer.
Right.
So if we stop making it, what are you going to do?
Right. They have a financial incentive. They have some of the biggest budgets allocated for lobbying, allocated for advertisements, allocated for media, that they use those financial resources to keep this system going. Because the longer this goes on for, the better their balance sheets, the better their stock price. And I think people need to realize, this is happening, that there are financial incentives that are going on that mean that there are certain people in society, namely big pharma, that want to continue the COVID crisis as long as possible, because the longer it goes on for, the more money they make. And it sucks to say, but that's the reality.
Well, I actually have news for you. I talked to this guy on 2 weeks ago on my episode, Peter Pitt. He used to work for the FDA. He was an executive. Republican, Jewish guy.
Yeah.
He was telling me that they're actually developing a flu and COVID shot together very soon, probably by next December.
Right.
So he's like, people are just going to go get their flu and COVID shot. Boom.
Right. And they're making
booster and flu shot.
And they're making a pill. They're making a pill.
Yeah.
And then you have all the therapeutics that are also available. So it's like at this point, it's like we have, we're not in the same position we were in April of 2020.
Right.
We know the disease. We have vaccines. We have therapeutics. We have beds. We've learned a lot over the last 2-something years.
There's no reason we should be in lockdowns anymore.
But we're still acting like it's April of 2020.
I know.
It's a joke, and it's hurting a lot of people because of that, and society can't move forward. And it's funny, New York is one of the places, but you go to a place like Florida.
Wide open. You
go to other parts of the country, it's a completely different story.
Liberals hate DeSantis.
Yeah, look, I think there's a hatred, and I think there's just this mentality that you're kind of living in a bubble in a place like New York, and you think the rest of the country is operating under the same rules, but the disease is not different between New York and Texas. It's the same disease. But
COVID's racist. Did you know that?
There you go.
You didn't know that, right?
I didn't know. I didn't know that.
Apparently COVID's racist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what I was told.
I don't know what the science seems to keep changing, but I think a lot of people are they may not say it publicly, and maybe they're just kind of keeping their opinions to themselves. But I think a lot of people are generally wanting to move on.
They're done. Yeah.
They're done with it, and maybe they're too scared to say it publicly. But I know a lot of people. It doesn't matter what their political background is. They could be a liberal. I know a lot of people that are very much on the political left, people who supported Bernie Sanders, AOC, and they think this is insane. Like, they're sick of it. So there's a huge, bipartisan support for kind of moving on. Moving on, and also not just moving on, but also reevaluating and just looking back and saying, what did we do wrong? And let's make sure we never do those same things again. Because obviously there's going to be another pandemic. There's going to be another outbreak. These things happen. But we need to make sure we don't, make the same mistakes we did during COVID. We should learn from it.
Speaking of moving on, that's a good transition. Why can't Justin Trudeau move on?
Oh, my God.
What is this guy's problem?
So,
and do you think he's Fidel Castro's love child? He really does look like him.
Oh, my God.
Dude, like, seriously, he does look like him.
There is a bone structure there.
The cheeks.
Yeah. It's I don't even know where to begin with this. So what's going on in Canada is kind of, it's absolutely crazy.
But let's just get this clear to everyone that's listening to this.
Yeah.
It's not an insurrection.
No.
There's bouncy castles.
Right.
The truckers are being 100% peaceful. They set up soup kitchens for homeless people.
Right.
They're doing food drives. They're like what is it? What is this insurrection? And they're not terrorists. Like,
Trudeau has a 16% approval rate right now. Like, if there was an election, he would lose.
Can they do a recall in Canada?
You could do snap elections in Canada. I don't know exactly what the constitutional mechanism is there, but
it's pretty similar to England, I think.
Yeah, it's a parliamentary system. He just had an election, which
he just got reelected.
But you also remember, he didn't win the popular vote.
No, he didn't.
He won the majority. He won a plurality of the seats, and that's the parliamentary system. It is what it is. But he's on the brink right now. I mean, his administration, his country, his regime, if you want to call it that, is in really dire straits. I mean, the truckers protesting, first off, I mean, everyone on the left likes to talk about, we love unions, we love the working guy, we love when they protest. Okay, so you have a working class union-based protest, and they're protesting because they drive alone in a car and they don't want to be mandated, and you're not siding with them as they're exercising, their basic rights to protest. And now what's going on? They instituted emergency powers, which basically
it's like martial law.
It's martial law. They strip you of basic civil rights, and they basically have instituted a system where the government can tell the banks in Canada to freeze your assets, to freeze your funds.
TD Bank is actually one of the biggest ones, and I have TD Bank, and I'm very disgusted with it.
It's disgusting.
I literally want to change banks.
I mean, what kind of free country can you live in where if you have a political opinion that disagrees with the government, that they can take your bank account, seize it, and prevent you from supporting your family?
The banking is a private institution.
The private
it's
institution
not owned by the government.
Exactly, and they're just telling them what to do. So it's sick. I mean, you cannot have any freedoms. You can't have any ability to do anything if someone's locking you out of your bank account. I mean, people, you still have the right to free speech. We're just going to make you destitute and make sure you can't pay your bills and make sure you starve to death because you can't afford anything. I mean, that's the kind of mentality. It's so sick. It's so depraved. And he's lost support across the country in Canada. Every province in Canada, I believe, Quebec,
Quebec's dropping their vaccine mandate. They're done with that. Yeah,
Manitoba, everyone.
Ontario.
I think Ontario.
Yeah, Ontario. I think so.
I think Ontario.
I think they just dropped.
Everyone's. I can't pronounce it. Saskatchewan. I think they're all dropping their mandates. His support in Parliament has been completely eroded. So he's flailing, and all he had to do was say, "I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I'm going to pull it back."
Or just sit with them and talk. Like a man.
Right. He didn't even want to meet with them.
Animals.
He didn't want to meet with them. He accused them of all sorts of crazy things and completely defamed them and claimed that they were violent or they were, racist
Terrorists.
And all these things. And
White supremacists.
All these ridiculous things that they devalue the meaning of those words.
Right.
And now what's the solution? They're still protesting.
He called a member of parliament who was Jewish yesterday a white supremacist.
Oh, yeah. No.
She supports swastikas.
Yeah. And
what?
And she was basically like, I'm Jewish. This is insane. So
are you kidding me?
Yeah. So
is this guy crazy?
I don't know. I think he's.
And this is coming from the guy who was caught with blackface twice.
Right. Well, the people that preach the loudest generally have the most things to hide.
Of course.
It's just kind of a preachy thing. Look, I don't know what's going to happen. I think it's crazy that it's gone this far, and they don't seem to be stopping. And I think a lot of people are waking up. The Civil Liberties Union of Canada, the equivalent to our ACLU, they condemned his action.
Okay.
There are people in Canada.
Well, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, the people. There are groups in Canada that
the ACLU here would actually not condemn.
Right.
So I'm pretty surprised.
They've fallen a lot since they were first formed. But there's a lot of these left-wing groups in Canada, people that support the mandates that are still anti-Trudeau because of this declaration.
He's gone too far.
Like he overplayed his hand. Like these measures are literally for like, invasion, or some kind of really egregious thing. You're talking about a protest on a bridge
with bouncy castles,
and it's like if it's that bad, then why have it? Yeah, and he clearly hasn't used every option. He hasn't talked to them. He hasn't tried negotiating. He hasn't tried.
He went into hiding.
He fled the capital.
He got COVID.
I heard he came to the U.S. for a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, look. I don't think he's going to last long. I mean, he may be able to survive this crisis, but the next time there's an election, this stuff is not going away. He's going to suffer at the ballot box for sure. And I'm glad to see Canada is putting rebelling about it. I mean, it's funny. And then
Canada is a very tough. They're tough son of bitches,
right? Yeah, and people keep and this is happening everywhere. This is happening in Australia, New Zealand.
That's a whole nother episode.
Germany, Austria. Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a crazy place.
It's crazy.
All right. Well, last thing. You gave me a lot of time. Who do you want for president in 2024, and who do you want for New York governor?
Oh, New York governor. Yeah. So I think Hochul is pretty weak. I think she's not say what you want about Cuomo, but that guy, he was a political machine.
Well, he's got the family.
He got the family. He scared a lot of people. Like, look at how many scandals and crises had to happen before Cuomo resigned.
Well, he's a mobster.
He's a mobster. He operated like a political mobster.
Yeah.
Hochul doesn't have that. No one is scared of Hochul in the Democrat Party.
Nice.
She's too nice. No one scares her. She's not exactly an effective politician. And the funny thing about Cuomo is that New York is very ethnic. So a last name like Cuomo, he was still winning Staten Island. He was still winning Nassau County. He was still winning a lot of these outer borough and suburban areas that were Italian American. His last name. Yeah. Now that that's not on the ticket, a lot of those counties could shift Republican. Like Staten Island, for example, voted for Cuomo each time. People forget that.
Right.
Nassau County, the same thing. So a lot of these places are going to change, and it's not going to be to Hochul's benefit. So I think it's not going to be an easy fight, but I think for Republicans, it's probably going to be one of the best shots they've had to winning the governor's race. You got two candidates. You got Andrew Giuliani. You got Lee Zeldin. Right. I think they're both good. I like them both. I don't want to comment because I don't want to get in trouble, but I think either of them would be good to run. I think they both bring a lot to the table. Zeldin has the pedigree with Congress and everything.
The thing I know Giuliani's, we like him. He's a friend of ours. But do you think his, I love Rudy. I met him in person, great guy. But do you think his father's connection right now to the whole Trump nonsense, even though if it's bullshit or not, whatever.
Oh, it's definitely going to hurt him.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Do you think it's going to hurt him?
It's going to hurt him, but it's also going to help him. Like, you have to remember, like, the name, it's a double-edged sword.
Right.
So, there's certain people that are never going to vote for him because his last name is Giuliani.
Right. But he never did anything.
He didn't do anything. He's just the son.
Yeah, he's just the son. Right. He's totally
and then there's another group of people that see the last name and they're definitely going to vote for him.
Right.
And there's also, you have to remember, like, Giuliani, he was mayor of New York City. New York City was just as Democratic and liberal in the 90s as it is now. Right. He won with a lot of Democrat liberal support. People forget this.
He was also a moderate mayor as well.
He was a moderate mayor.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Democrats and liberals that are still alive, that still live in New York City, that still live in New York State, that voted for his father and knew he was a good mayor. So I think I've seen some polling that says that Giuliani does actually better than Zeldin in the general head-to-head against Hochul. He's also doing very well in the primary. I mean, you see all the opinion polls. He's up by double digits. He has the name rec. That's simple. I think either one of them will be good. I think it's still going to be an uphill fight. I think they're going to benefit from a red wave year, so a lot of things are going to be a lot more favorable for us this cycle. But we'll see if if either of them get into power. It'll be massive because the governor of New York is one of the most powerful governorships in the country.
Of course. Everybody follows the governor of New York.
And it's like, not just from publicity, but like legally.
Policies. Yeah,
policies.
Of course, yes,
it's like a dictator.
Yeah,
Cuomo was a dictator.
Yeah. Everything he did for COVID, everyone else followed suit.
The governor of Texas, for example, has a lot less power than the governor of New York.
Right.
Like, there's a lot more restrictions. You take the governor of New York, it doesn't even matter if you don't control the Senate, you don't control the Assembly, you have a lot of influence. So I think, it'll be interesting. I'm not going to say which one of them.
Yeah, whatever. I understand.
And look, for president, it looks like it's Trump's running.
You think Trump is going to run?
100%. I mean, he's launching
he'll just fucking swipe everyone.
No one's going to challenge him.
You don't think
DeSantis won't challenge him?
No, I don't think he would challenge him. You think he would be his running mate, though?
He can't. I mean, as it stands now, no.
Because he's going to run for governor again, you think?
Well, that's one thing. But if they both are now legally Florida residents.
Oh, right. I forgot.
So if you do that, you have to.
He has to go back into New York now.
Or another state. He couldn't have them both because if you have them both on the same ticket, you actually lose that state's electoral votes.
You know who I think should run with Trump? Honestly, hear me out on this. Tim Scott. The South Carolina senator.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's all right.
I like Tim Scott, man. He's very fiery, very small business.
Okay.
Yeah. He's.
I don't know.
I like him for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know. It's like I always hear him speak very small business. Like he even still has an office in I think in Charleston, South Carolina. Yeah. Like he would be like a good
Yeah, he's all right. We'll see. I mean, I don't know.
Definitely not Mike Pence.
No, Mike Pence is done.
He's done.
He's done. Yeah.
Who would make a good vice president for 2024 Trump?
I mean, honestly, I think DeSantis would be great, but they can't do it unless they change. I mean, I don't know who's after him. It's kind of tough. I mean, I like Senator Hawley in Missouri. I think he'd be good. I like him. Cotton in Arkansas.
Oh, yeah, Cotton. That's right.
I like some of those guys. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting few years to be sure. Maybe not. Maybe Kamala versus Trump come 2024.
Oh, Jesus, I could only hope. We hope so.
I mean, she has her favorabilities in the water. I mean, she has lower.
We hope she runs.
Yeah, she has lower approval ratings than.
And right now, with the whole Hillary stuff going on, how she spied on him, it's fake. She says it's just horse shit.
Right.
He made it up.
There's an indictment.
Her
lawyer was indicted.
Yeah, no special investigation. Fake.
Yeah, it's funny that they get. There's so much gaslighting that goes on. Like you could have literally an indictment. You could have charges.
Fake.
And it's fake. So.
She's asking the judge to throw it out because it's fake news.
we'll see what happens. I mean, there's a lot of crooked judges, so we'll see.
This is true, especially if they're Democrat judges. But listen, Gavin, I appreciate it, man. You really
good.
gave me a lot of time. We got to do it again.
Absolutely, man.
Maybe after the red wave.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Whenever you want. I'm always happy to talk Sunday sauce.
All right, appreciate that.
All right,
Thanks, Gavin.
cheers, man.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.